It's time to introduce our first speaker, which is Theresa Neate. So bringing together her loves of systems thinking and efficiency, usability and human resilience, she wants to share her knowledge with you about both knowing the human and the human experience of software engineers in a field called developer experience. Theresa tells me that bravery is one of her highest rated skills through personality testing. There is a reason behind why this is, but I'll let Theresa tell that story during the breaks. Theresa currently works for software developer tooling company BuildKite as Director of Engineering. But today, we have her for the next half hour, give or take. Folks, please welcome Theresa Neate. Your mic's there. Ready to go?
Hello. So as with all conferences, none of the technology is working today. So what I have in front of me is not how I'm controlling that. So Swapnil, I think, is controlling it from there, and I have a clicker. So hello, I'm Theresa, and we are talking about Don't Make Me Think, which I think you may have heard about in the UX schools of thought. I'm talking about the UX of developer experience, though. Excellent, it's working. I am a systems thinker, I'm eternally curious, I'm an engineering leader, and you can find me at theresaneate.net, and I work at BuildKite. BuildKite is a developer tooling company, and you can find us at buildkite.com. All right, I've got so many buttons to press. I realize that maybe you're expecting today a boring talk about boring topics, but I'm going to invite audience participation in a few places. And when I do invite that, I'd like you to shout. So if you're ready to shout a few things out, let's get started. We're investigating how we think, so thinking systems. I see one of my colleagues here who's actually a trained psychologist. I'm not a trained psychologist, but I will tell you a little bit about how we think and therefore how this impacts user experience. And if you know something about how we think and the psychology of thinking and user experience, then we can talk about developer experience. Who's heard of thinking fast and slow? Very nice, awesome. Daniel Kahneman is a psychologist, yet he won a Nobel Prize for economics. And he won that prize because he described behavioral economics. And he's not an economist, but he won the Nobel Prize. He is, he passed recently, he was very notable for dissecting human systems of thinking. And I'm drawing a lot from him today. First system he talks about is thinking fast. So there's thinking fast and thinking slow. And system one is thinking fast, which is a real cognitive ease. Super easy. You can't unprogram it from your brain. It's going to be there forever. It's intuitive, very prone to bias. It's just a little bit of a red flag for you. If you have an intuitive or instant thought, check your biases. It could be one of those. It's unreliable. So, for instance, if you see a snake slither in front of you, your instinctive response will be to jump. But you might do the same if there's a stick. So reliability isn't guaranteed. It's very fast, keeps you alive, it's instinctive, and it's automatic. So where we see this really at play is, for instance, if you are driving down the road, down a familiar road, and you are playing some music or a podcast or an audio book, you can keep driving and listen. So that keeping driving is your thinking fast. It's very automatic, it's very instinctive. It also keeps you alive. if someone runs in front of the car at that moment in time. There's not a heck of a lot of concentration occurring at this point in time. It's very easy. All right, I promised some fun. So I'm going to show you 3 things, and you don't need to use slow thinking. This is fast thinking. This is instinctive. And can I just quickly check? Shout out, say something, say hello, everyone. Hello. Awesome. All right, we got sound. So I'm going to show you something, and I want you to shout out immediately your instinctive thinking fast description or definition of what you see. Ready? Here we go. Yelling, angry, etc. You didn't think, oh, she's got nice red hair. Who does her teeth? That's a nice t-shirt, I should get one. That's slow thinking. So fast thinking showed you, very instinctively, angry, yelling. All right, I got another one for you. You ready? Here we go. I get that every time. I get cat, and I get kitten. That's system 1. And I can't do a talk without cats in it or a kitten in it. So I had to bring it in. There's a third one. It's not an image. It's a term. It's a noun. Use your instinctive thinking to tell me exactly what you thought of when you saw that word. All right, here we go. Truck driver? There we go. Well done. Well done. So, thinking fast is prone to bias. My bias, which we're all ridden with, my bias had an image of a bloke in fluoros, maybe a singlet, certain age demographic, not very well groomed, and with a bit of a belly. Right? That was system 1 doing the work for us. System 1 would not have produced this. Not for us. Because we have biases and our instinctive thought. Unless, of course, you have trained your system 1, which you can do. So you can untrain your biases if you become aware of them. All right, we've explored system 1. Now, slow thinking. It's the complete opposite. Slow thinking involves cognitive strain, reason, analytical thinking, computational thinking. It's very reliable, which is we as Homo sapiens, humans who think, we have this capability. It does take some effort. If you need to do a complex mathematical formula, it takes a little bit of effort. It does require concentration. It's not instinctive. And therefore, if you're doing a hook turn in Melbourne, this is what you need. Now, I'm an immigrant to Australia, and I did not know about hook turns when I first arrived. And I hired the RACV to teach me how to drive so that I knew exactly what to do with a hook turn. As you know, the degree of concentration required is you pull over to the left. You want to turn right, but you're pulling over to the left. You are watching the traffic lights. You're watching for cars who are trying to rush through the intersection. And the last-minute pedestrian trying to make a break for it. Not to mention the trams. That requires concentration. That's system 2. And it's very, very likely that if you are using slow thinking, you cannot engage in conversation with your passenger anymore. So just a second, let me just do this quickly. All right, those are the systems of thinking. We're going to have a little bit of fun again. I'm going to show you a riddle, and you're allowed to use your system 2 thinking. In other words, you can think about the answer. When you've thought about the answer, please shout it out. All of the above are correct, and so is coin. It's a coin. You had to use system 2. It was computational thinking. And this is the system that requires effort. So, we're going to have a little bit more fun, but this is in quotes, and I apologize in advance for inflicting this on you. There is a reason, and it will come back again, and we'll have another look at it. So just for a second, have a look at the following. There's no excuse. There really is no excuse. This is regularly listed at the top of any research as one of the worst websites in the world. Links in the UK. So we can say that wasn't fun. Your system 1 had a response, by the way. Your fast thinking had a response. Did you notice that? That rejection? And then your system 2 tried to make sense of it. What is going on? Why is he making that face? Why is that thing jumping up and down? What are the paisleys doing? I have no idea why there are paisleys on there. Okay, that wasn't fun. So this teaches you that poor UX requires you to engage your slow thinking. If it's good UX, you don't need to use slow thinking. The minute you start thinking, which might involve a furrow on the forehead, which might, turn your face sideways, UX is out the window. And this is why we say, don't make me think, which is system 2. That is good UX. And Steve Krug wrote the book. He's updated it a few times. Please read it. Excellent UX. And he says usability is fundamentally about human psychology. It's not about what's pretty. It's about psychology. And the quote from the book that I'll read out to you verbatim, usability is about people and how they understand and use things, not about technology. While technology often changes quickly, people change very slowly. Who's been around long enough to remember the 90s or the early 2000s when, thank you, when business intelligence was all the rage? Do you remember that? Right. All the rage. It was going to solve human problems and cancer and everything. And then not long after that, 2007, 2008, Amazon Web Services came along, and it was all the rage, which I have to admit is pretty cool, and I absolutely love AWS. I'm not slagging it. But it was going to solve everything at the time. And then we moved on, and I know we have a talk on this later on today, but there's AI, which is now currently solving all the problems. It's a tool that humans use. In itself, technology is not the solution. It's how humans use it, and therefore usability. When we use the web, anything with HTML, HTTP, anything with a page, we scan, we don't read. First thing you do when a page loads, you may have seen that with links, is you scanned. If you don't need to read, that's good UX. We use guesswork. You couldn't really guess what was happening on links, could you? And thirdly, we don't compare options. He had 1 million cars on there. Some were discounted, some were 2022 car of the year, some were something else, something else, something else. We had to use our decision, our system 2, to try and make sense of it. We'll quickly run through some essential principles. And then we are revisiting links. Firstly, a good website or a document, we're documentarians here, is self-evident. You need to know immediately what you're looking at when you look at it. Ruthlessly reduce the word count. Ruthless is intentional. Every click should be instinctive. You should know where it's taking you and how to get back. And there shouldn't be a million choices either to click. Clear navigability, that means both the menu at the top and the sidebar, very clear. You should also know what page you're on as you're navigating. Uniformity, which is simplicity and minimalism. And designed for easy scanning. Those are the principles that underpin good usability, but they are nothing if you do not do user testing. If you cannot engage external users, please dog food it, which is with your internal colleagues, which means eating your own dog food. Dog food it, have a lunch and learn, have people sit and look at your thing, you've built it, give me some feedback, what's the first thing you think of? If you have eye tracking software, that is excellent too. All right, we're gonna have some more fun, again in quotes. So you've now understood some principles or perhaps been reminded of them. Let's look again at the following. I can hear the sighs from here. Oh, goodness help us. All right, put you out of your misery. Interactive exercise. In your opinion, what principles were violated? Yeah. Highly distracting. We come back to it, but I don't want you to see it again. You couldn't scan it. You had so many choices to make right there. Nothing was instinctive. So that's bad UX. But I'll put you out of your misery and we'll do great UX. And because we're documentarians, we'll look at good UX in docs. Everyone on Reddit feel this is the best example of good UX in docs. There's a number of reasons why. It's scannable. Navigation is very clear. You can see exactly what page you're on. You can also see the options on the left. And I don't know if I have a pointer on this. Tell me if I do. Okay, maybe I think I do. Is it? No, let's try. I'm not going to press any buttons. So do you see the 1, the 2, and the 3 over here? This is essential for DX, and we'll go into that in a second. This is great UX. All right, in summary, 3 laws of usability. Don't make the user think. Make every click an obvious choice. Halve the words, and then halve them again. If you had a look at the Twilio page, it wasn't word soup. It was very clear. Okay. So now, this brings us to developer experience. We started looking at developer documentation, and developer experience is underpinned by user experience, obviously. Obviously. But there's more to developer experience than just good UX. And where we say, don't make me think for UX, in developer experience, we say, don't make me code. If you're providing a system or a platform or a tool or a service to a developer, and they have to write reams of code to make it work, your UX sucks. Don't make me code is now an industry-accepted term for good DX. You will find really excellent podcasts like the one that says, Don't Make Me Code, that talks about developer experience. They haven't updated it recently, but I consumed all of their materials 3 times over when it first came out. It's really fantastic. There are a few metrics in DX that are essential. I'm going to list 3 that I feel are key. And the first one, in my opinion, is the most important. This is the speed from 0 to hello world, which means when a software engineer determines to use your tool, your platform, your API, your service, to the minute they're able to output hello world, that speed is good UX and good DX. That's the number 1 metrics. Some people like to measure NPS and satisfaction and all of that. Yeah, everyone does. It doesn't necessarily speak directly to DX. NPS, Net Promoter Score, if you haven't heard of it, is whether someone would recommend your service. And we will touch on NPS at the end. There's an aspect of people advocating for you that is very helpful. Responsive support. Now, I promise you, BuildKite did not pay me to say this. I work for BuildKite, but we do the best support I have ever seen. Ever seen. It is one of the standout features. In other words, there's a Slack channel, you engage in the Slack channel, you'll get an answer within 5 to 20 minutes. My colleague Baz over there, he's frequently involved in some of those spicy conversations about feature requests. And we are very engaged with our customers, extremely engaged. We do not ignore them. It's an excellent DX metric and a DX function to have. Instant sign up. How many times have all of you signed up to something and a form loads and you have to put in your name and your surname and your middle name? Oh, and then your title. I don't know why they ask me my title, but then there's a title, and then they want your home address and your postal address. Do you just click exit? I'm gone. I'm out. So instant sign-up is low friction. So you can start delivering pieces of the service to someone and then grab their name, perhaps, in one of the next boxes. Or you can just do a quick Google SSO. Instant sign-up. Guess what? We're looking at another example, and you will not be surprised to know that we're looking at exactly the same one we did before. And here's the thing that I want to call out to you in particular, is this 1, 2, and 3 that you see there. That is the ease with which you sign up and the 0 to hello world being signified right there. If you feel like reading documentation on Reddit and the subreddits, people are very passionate about good and bad. And this is the one that has won many arguments on Reddit. And I really like how easy they've made it. It's quite clear. The page you're on, programmable messaging, it's clear on the sidebar, that's where you are. There are other tops at the menu that you can go to. By the way, did you notice the calls to action? Exactly the same call to action. It's just looking a little bit different, but it's the same thing. Excellent. No word vomit. All right. So just a reminder that usability and UX is fundamentally about human psychology. I hate to burst your bubble, it's not about technology. But I think as documentarians, you probably know that already. That's why you're here. But did you know DX2 is about human psychology? And with that, I'm going to give you this last image as a lingering thought. I promise you I did not dream this up. This is real. This is the DX hierarchy of needs. My former colleague Andy Marks from ThoughtWorks came up with this, and I have very gladly borrowed it ever since in a number of talks and in some blog posts. This version was drawn by another former colleague, but we borrowed it from Andy. And fundamentally, if you provide a system, it needs to function. So let's say, how many software developers are in the room? Software engineers. Cool. Awesome. Tell me your best tool or platform that you like to use. Git? Anyone else? React? All right. Both of those work. They're functional. They're also highly reliable. If you want to use them, they are there to use. The uptime is sensational, especially Git, which is a hosted service. It's usable, meaning you actually know what to do with it and how to navigate it. And it's pleasurable. And this is where NPS... It's not? Which one, React? Git. I was going to have fun with React instead. Okay. Some people think it's pleasurable. Geneva Convention. So if you enjoy using the tool, the platform, the library, or the service as a developer, you are likely to tell other people about it. That's where NPS comes in. That's your Net Promoter Score. But I don't want to measure NPS as a sole metric. It's an additional metric. So having said all of that, we're going to wrap this up. We've covered a lot of territory. We've talked about the way we think, how our thinking influences our experience as a user and also as a developer. So I will invite one last participation from you in the following, and how would you answer this? Anyone else? You won the prize. Humans and human psychology is literally the most important component of technology. That's why we have technology. Technology on its own, even AI, is useless without humans. And knowing what humans need also increases your uptake, your sales, your word of mouth, your NPS. We've come full circle with my message, and with that, I thank you so much for your attention today.
All right, thank you. Let's get the stage ready for questions. Theresa, thank you so much for that. It was really interesting, I think, to see the fast and slow thinking idea, and I never thought about it like that until you actually presented it and we actually got to try it out. So, folks, what I'm going to do is invite some questions. The way it's going to work is, so we can pick it up on the audio, you're going to ask me the question, I'm going to summarise the question, and then Theresa's going to answer it. So, show of hands, who'd like to go first with the question? Down there in the corner. Oh, if you want to. Okay, I'll see if I can summarise that, and do correct me if I've got it wrong. So on some websites, like specifically Japanese websites, there does seem to be a challenge of information density. So how do we overcome that information density and those cultural norms when we're actually looking at UX so we still have a good experience? Does that summarise that? Great.
Yes, it is probably cultural. But I'm also an enthusiastic consumer of Japanese cosmetics. And when I look at the cosmetics websites, they are beautifully smooth and clean. So that might have been the American influence, but I feel that they're still playing catch up. That's my personal opinion. If you go by SK2, by the way, cosmetics, You'll pay an arm and a leg for it, of course, but the website is beautiful.
Okay, who's next? Yes, in the front there. Yeah, you.
Having grown up colleagues that formative years being in the era of banner ads, my immediate instinct is to see the only two relevant parts of that website that are relevant to me. How do you account for users who have managed to train their fast thinking to that level when you're implementing UX?
So this is an interesting question. It's the for those long-time internet users who are trained to look at things like banner ads and filtering those out from the initial look of the page. How do you undo that mental training so that they can actually get a better user experience and not have to like work around that cognitive load? Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway is your system one is trainable. So just as you trained it to enjoy banner ads, you can also untrain it, or we just violate the Geneva Convention. However, this is why we need user testing, and this is why we need dog fooding, is because we have biases. Your system one is typically biased. It can be quite biased. So we need other humans to look at it. And the more other humans look at it, the more you will see your own blind spots. Dog fooding is ace.
The more eyes, the better. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
That's right. Yes. Cameron.
So we're all very enlightened human beings here. However, we work with people who are engineers. I say that as an engineer. How do we pitch to the engineers who know that technology is going to solve everything? And how do we nudge them along?
Okay, so this is a question about those of us who work with engineers and have to think about usability when we're designing. How can we help engineers understand these principles that we're talking about today?
You send them my way. Or you work with me and I will educate you on diversity, biases, blind spots. The truth of the matter is, the collective intelligence of the room raises with diversity. So the more diversity you have in the room, the more intelligent you are collectively. My advice is invite other people to the conversation. And someone once said, developers are people too. And I think that's slightly condescending, but I agree, they're humans. They're lovely people. Everyone, I believe most people are incredibly lovely. They just need to be exposed to more. And we learn. And one of the things I do as a leader is I lead by example, and therefore I expect people to learn from my behavior. So my suggestion is raise the diversity in the team, and people will raise their intelligence collectively.
And also, we have engineers in the room, so they've already got their documentarian ticket right now. So, you know, we just need, like, there's people who understand that, you know, user experience matters. And I'm seeing that a fair bit with developers as well. There's more understanding coming through now when they're thinking about how they design systems and other things that they can use to make predictable things. So they don't have to think. They can just use, they don't have to use the reasoning center. They go, oh, that's what I need to use.
Yeah.
And it helps them. Yes, over there. Okay, this question is a good one. It's about accessibility. How do we factor that into UX and DX?
It's non-negotiable. I just didn't have the time to cover it today. And it wasn't completely on topic for the thread that I was on. But accessibility is non-negotiable. Whether you are sight impaired, whether you are hearing impaired, whether you have neurodiversity of any kind, we have to use a test and involve people of diversity in the testing. So I worked for a government agency once upon a time, and we were legislated to apply accessibility standards. Everyone else usually treats it like, we'll get to it next time, maybe next time. There's a really tight correlation between accessibility and usability. And you'll very often find that, for instance, if your tab order, which is one of the accessibility requirements, is in sequence, your usability is immediately improved. So they're tightly coupled. I didn't have the space to fit it into this talk.
We've got time for a couple more. I'm going to go back row just there. I think it's, yep.
Do you find any difference in building a product aimed at developers if it's something aimed at their personal lives and thinking personal GitHub accounts versus something that they're more likely to only use in an organizational context, which might be build a kite?
Okay, this is an interesting one. So what is the difference between developing something, or the experience that, say, a developer might have with something that they use personally, like Git or something like that, versus something that they're forced to use in the organization, like some other tool that they need to use? What is the difference in thinking when they're using that sort of thing? Did I get that right? Is that summarized about right?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
The example that comes to mind for me is when Satya Nadella took over Microsoft. If you recall, when Bill Gates was CEO, his target was enterprises, and Microsoft Office was the target. So business users were the target. And then when Satya Nadella came into position, he created a Linux interface, an Ubuntu interface. He created some hypervisors. He created things that developers use. And my answer in short for you is that if a developer has to use something else at home because it's more fun, you are giving them the wrong thing to work with at work. Developer experience is essential at work. Don't inflict SVN on them.
Those who know.
For those who know, don't inflict it on them. Let them use what makes them happy.
We are running short on time. I want to take one more question. I think I'm going to go very back row up there for you, sir. I'll see if I can summarize that. There's a lot going on in that question, which is good. It's a very good question. So how do you differentiate between DX and UX? And I'm going to just focus on the question about technical writing aspect there as well, because I think that's a really interesting point. How do you focus on sort of doing both of those things effectively? I don't think I quite got the point of your question there, but good enough? I don't know. I'll take it. Yeah.
If your documentation in DX shows a quick sign up, it's more DX than it is UX. If your documentation shows you how to get from 0 to hello world, you're applying DX, essentially. Bonus, if you're applying good UX with a clean page and with minimalist words. And to me, the distinction isn't that wide. I would prefer that we keep the subjects together, but when you are working with developers and developer tooling, they want to get started quickly, and they need really good documentation. Documentation is not an option. I don't feel there's a great distinction, but if you are writing docs for developers, they need to know how to use the tool. So the usability aspect of the hierarchy of needs is essential.
Okay. I would love to take more questions, but we are actually out of time, which, let's remind ourselves of what Swapna was saying. Everyone can talk to everyone here. So take advantage of the breaks. Have a chat to Theresa in the breaks if you've got any follow-up questions or something's tweaked your interest in the talk. But for now, let's thank Theresa for an amazing first up presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.